Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and RareGem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at OneRareGem.com. That's OneRaregem.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission. Today we continue our conversation with Dr. Donald Suggs, publisher and executive editor of the St. Louis American.
Black men have a challenge surviving this world.
Yes.
Speaking as one and speaking for your cousin and speaking for your brother, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think that we've got a culture that's, there's no accident. If we looked at the most successful African Americans materially in St. Louis, almost all of them did not come from what I call the urban male upbringing. I could cite for you in St. Louis the people who have been most successful. Almost all of them come from a non-traditional black male upbringing.
We'll be right back.
We don't always know how to deal, and the stress is making us sick. How do you bounce back when everywhere you turn is stress? Try this. Contemplate. Pause. Take it on. Take 5. And think. Investigate. Ask yourself what happened. Meditate. Find your peace within this all. As you know, the title of this program is Alive and Well, and we recognize that in order to become physically well, we must be spiritually and emotionally well. Discover more things to try. Go to aliveandwellstl.com. Alive and Well STL.
Today we are joined in studio with Dr. Donald Suggs, publisher and executive editor of the St. Louis American. And as we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I'm pleased to be speaking with you, Dr. Suggs, this morning. You selected as part of your legacy, not all of it, the American, St. Louis American. What is the purpose? What is the overall mission of the American? What does it do for us?
Well, what we seek to do, our mission is to try to create something that is credible and that is relevant and that is helpful as the community tries to address, some of the challenges that it has. So I see ourselves ideally as being more integrated into community and all the aspects of the community, which, as you know, is increasingly a diverse community itself. So I would want to see, and I don't know what form it takes, whether it's digital. Now our core business is print, but we're multi-platform. But the content, the notion that we can speak, have a forum where we can talk about things. We have a way where we can share our accomplishments, where we can tell the good news, where we can give that perspective in our own voice, in our own informed voice. So, it turns out to be journalism, but it's also advocacy journalism that tries to speak on behalf of a people's concern, of a community's concerns. And a community that, quite frankly, is not monolithic, so it has its own views, but that's what I would hope. But I think that it's only a part of a fabric that we need to try to create. And I don't think it's going to be exclusively African Americans who are going to create this. After all, the St. Louis American wouldn't exist if it didn't have, at least tacitly, white support. The St. Louis American is very costly every week, but there are advertisers and there are events. And so we have had enormous amount of support. And there are individuals. Our staff is multiracial, multi-ethnic, but it is driven by some shared values and some interest in trying to be a positive force in the community. We happen to be targeted to African Americans, but 18% of our leadership is not African American, and who knows what's happening in the social media space. So it's that we hope that we'll leave this to the next generation. We'll take this and build on it, and the form it takes will, but it's essential that it be rooted in and committed to the community.
You mentioned that your older brother was murdered.
My younger brother
was murdered. What happened?
Well, I don't like to get into it. It's painful for me still. It's very painful for me.
And because it lives with you now?
Yeah, well, it's my brother. And, I'm a very strongly tied to your family. And, he was, taller and better looking. And more sensitive and all that. And, he just got caught up in some things, and he changed his life, and he got cut down. So it's, it still hurts.
And as you live with that, and as you move forward with that,
excuse me, sorry.
No, it's part of the conversation. Black men have a challenge surviving this world.
Yes.
Speaking as one, and speaking for your cousin, and speaking for your brother, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think that we've got a culture that's, there's no accident. If we looked at the most successful African Americans materially in St. Louis, almost all of them did not come from what I call the urban male upbringing. And I just listened the other day to President Barack Obama. Barack Obama he had no urban male upbringing. And that can be deadly in the kind of society we have, because the values we embrace are not appropriate for our circumstances. One should be proud of is how I will make things better for my family, how I will make things better for my community. And we get caught up in things that I think just are almost backwards. Why would you want swag? What you should want in a spouse is a good father. And what you should want in a spouse is a good person. The idea of clothes, cars, all that, that unfortunately I think has seeped too much into the culture. And there's some things, as I said to you earlier, I don't separate myself from any of this, but I do call it what it is. It is wrong for a people, particularly people who have suffered.
Yeah.
And particularly for people who have an opportunity to do better. And I do think that what happened to us as a people was systematically, we were treated in a way, and I think we internalized a lot of that, feeling like we don't need to measure up to the kind of standard of behavior. We should take pride in the things that really matter, and not so much in some of the superficial things.
Absolutely.
That I think are an integral part, unfortunately, of a lot of male black upbringing. And I said earlier, I could cite for you in St. Louis the people who have been most successful. Almost all of them come from a non-traditional black male upbringing. The fellow from Clinton, Missouri, or somebody. Yes, right. Because that upbringing can be deadly. Barack Obama would not be president of the United States if he'd come up in a black urban setting and had been and absorbed the culture. He would not be president of the United States today, because there would be some stuff on him that he'd done that he should have done. And I'm not talking about smoking a joint. So, no, it's one of the problems we have. I think that any people who are oppressed, you have to start. The most important and significant thing you have to do is you have to start there. You have to kind of lift that, find some way. And I do think for African Americans, the most likely place they could find that to purge some of this mark of oppression is through faith. And I'm not in a good position to be speaking about that with authority. But after all, having lived a long time and been around a lot of conversations and discussions, I think for us, I hope that it can be progressive, because, they abused Christianity to enslave people, and they legitimized slavery, and they were considered themselves to be devout. They legitimized apartheid. They legitimized Jim Crow. They legitimized the Ku Klux Klan. But that's a perversion of Christianity. We could embrace it, as a way, as a road to our liberation, which is what we need. Even our material poverty is not nearly as significant as the slavery of the mind. There's a difference between being a slave and being enslaved. The enslaved person is simply confined, locked down, restricted physically. The slave is a person where they've gotten to you and convinced you are a lesser human being. That's deadly for a people.
And you talked about earlier, and I really appreciated how you put it, purging the mark of oppression. And this show and the communication that we're receiving is purging the mark of trauma, purging the mark of pain. Even you yourself have kind of said there are certain places that you can't even allow yourself to go because of the pain of loss and of grief and of love. So for those, Dr. Suggs, that may be in your same situation, we have closed doors to certain things. We can't talk about certain things because the pain is just that great. And that really is connected to the trauma, whether it is on an individual level or racism. How do you cope with, survive the trauma in your own life? And what is your advice to us about how we endure this?
I think for me, I clearly, I've had some balance in my life. I've been fortunate in that way. But I think that you have to, first of all, acknowledge, your situation. I don't think that, obviously, a lot of our travail is based on what was done to us as a people. But I don't think that we're not going to be truly emancipated until we find that inside ourselves. And I think that the moment for me that was I was most optimistic in the 60s because you had people there who were arguing that they didn't want to be dealt with in that way. And I see the millennials that protested the shooting of Michael Brown, that same kind of notion that you don't want to be treated in that way. You want your humanity. You want to be dealt with in your fullness. It doesn't mean that you are opposed to anybody else. I don't buy the notion that, I don't think it's about white people, but I think some of this is institutional, and I think some of it is structural, and obviously you have to be in opposition to that. And I think that you're not in a country where you are the majority, and you can't impose your will physically, but there are things you can do. I think you can align yourself with like-minded people. Barack Obama would not be president if some whites had not voted for him. 56% of whites did not vote for him, but an awful lot of white people did vote for him, and so did a lot of blacks and Hispanics. So I do think there are people of goodwill, people who really, it's hard not to have racial feelings in a society like ours that is so polarized, but it doesn't get in the way. I do think there's goodness in people, and I do think that most people would rather be aligned with what is good, what is fair, what is just. There are people who are on the extremes, obviously, but I still have faith in human beings.
What do you think about, given post the uprising and the agitation that's happening around Ferguson? What happened with Michael Brown? What do you think?
Oppressed people need to push back against their oppression. Now, the expression of it and the motivation for some of the individuals around it, but I think the whole notion of I don't want to be dealt with in that way is appropriate. I think what you heard from the Department of Justice about the police response. You have to object to being dealt with in that way. And we know that there's crime. We know that I'm prepared to deal with that issue. Law enforcement is essential, necessary, but it has to have boundaries. And we have to insist that humanity be respected. You just can't leave people to say, listen, those are unruly folks over there, and that's where all the crime comes from. So listen, you got free reign to mistreat them. So whether it's, in poor neighborhoods or in prisons, we cannot accept the denial of people's basic humanity. To do that is not only what it does to the victim, but what it does to you, the perpetrator. And I'm so delighted now to see that this Confederate flag is being revealed for what it is. It is a symbol of what was vile and evil in our history, and we need symbols that represent reconciliation. And these monuments that they praise because this was supposed to be an honorable war fought by Southerners is absolute nonsense. The war was fought around slavery. I don't mean every individual that was involved in the Confederate forces realized that, but basically and unequivocally, it was about slavery, period.
And what role has media played in projecting both the lie and the truth? Yeah,
well, you write the history, and, its history is more, kind. But the reality, and I think all the scholarship, it's not me saying this, the scholarship says unequivocally, and they say in their writings, the Confederacy, that we have a people here who are a subject people, and appropriately because we are superior. So white supremacy was accepted, and not just in the South and parts of the North as well. But this is a long story. I'm sorry we don't have time to.
No, it's okay. News, anything else you want to share?
Well, nothing except I think that, the wider view about the world, I think the more you understand that, sometimes we tend to be a little bit provincial, limited in our thinking. We need to have a broader view about the world, and we come to these. I think the sooner we can have a broader view, probably the better for particularly those who are for whatever reasons, in this leadership position.
Love and respect to you, Dr. Suggs. Thanks for everything you've done for me personally.
Thank you very much.
And for this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us again for another episode of Alive and Well STL. Stay tuned for another episode next week. You can visit us at Alive and Well STL on Twitter at Alive and Well STL.
Alive and Well STL.
We are grateful for your gift of time to this conversation. We encourage you to stay involved and get involved.
You are invited to join the conversation. If you, your family, or your organization is interested in talking about how we better the well-being of the region, sign up for more information, join the conversation, log on to aliveandwellstl.com, and let's build a plan on how we can work together and improve our overall health and become alive and well. The Regional Health Commission with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Jr. committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade in 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at stlrhc.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.